living for the people.
This is L. Nathan Hare. Join me right here, 91.3 FM WBNY. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 9 a.m. after Amy Goodman's Democracy Now! We'll provide objective analysis regarding current issues. Call 878-5104. It's Living for the People on 91.3 FM WBNY.
WBNY Buffalo.
The views expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of 91.3 FM WBNY, the United Students Government at Buffalo State, or Buffalo State itself. Due to the opinionated nature of these programs, listener discretion is highly advised. If you have any questions or comments about today's program, you can give us a call at 716-878-5104.
To join Mr. Hare on today's Living for the People, dial 878-5104. That's 716-878-5104. Or go to facebook.com/91.3 WBNY and comment there. That's facebook.com/91.3 WBNY.
All right, welcome to Living for the People. This is L. Nathan Hare. Welcome to our broadcast. Focus on providing you insight into events shaping our national and regional world and the facts behind those events and policies that are shaping our world for today and for tomorrow. Excuse me. Join us weekly on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. following Amy Goodman's Democracy Now! Program. And, of course, our program is live, so you can call in, you can join our discussion. We really hope that you will. Our number here again is 716-878-5104. That's 716-878-5104. We're normally here with Norma Carter, who is an in-studio audience of one, but his knees are still a little bit stretched out with inflammation from the accident that he had over a week ago, but hopefully he's getting better. Willie, you'll tell us if he'll be back on Monday or Wednesday next week?
Yeah, he said he's going to try to come back Monday. He should be better by then.
Tell him don't push yourself because inflammation in your joints, when it gets in there, it's hard to get it out. So take whatever amount of time you need, to let that stuff pass. And of course, I'm talking to Willie H., who is the producer who does the live streaming of the program. Welcome, Willie.
Welcome, everybody, to Living for the People with L. Nathan here. Call us 716-878-5104.
Now, Willie, I just wanted us to put a little touchstone on something. We've talked about this from time to time, but I didn't think that we had done enough research. We had just sort of given educated opinions about it. But I just wanted to do something called fact-checking. And background, so that we all are talking about the same thing, using the same facts.
Right.
You don't have to come to the same conclusion, but you should at least agree that these are the facts, right?
Right.
So I asked myself a question. Who did Israel declare independence from in 1948 in their War of Independence? Now, why did I ask myself that question? It's because I didn't know that there ever was a War of Independence for the state of Israel. I didn't know that Israel was being conquered by anybody. So I do the reasonable thing. I go to the internet and I look it up. And lo and behold, in 1948, when the Balfour Resolution was adopted, they treated that as if that was the 4th of July. That was Israel's Liberation Day. And they called it Israel's Independence Day. But I asked myself, Israel wasn't a country in 1947 and before for thousands of years. Israel wasn't a country. There was no place on earth called Israel. So if they weren't being occupied, if it was not a country that was being occupied by some foreign power, what are you declaring your independence from? When the United States declared its independence, it was declaring its independence from England. Who was Israel declaring their independence from? We'll just work with that thought, put that down, as one of our facts. Second thing is, Israel was not a province of some other country. It wasn't like, Kazakhstan, was a province of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, and they were fighting a war of independence from them, or Afghanistan was trying to fight a war of independence, from them, there was no place called Israel to fight a war of independence in the first place. What are you being made independent from?
Well, did not know that.
That's my point. Facts are important in order to establish context so that you can understand the dynamics that create the realities that you're living in today. So I go on Wikipedia. It's not the best place to go to get, completely authenticated data, because it's a website where people can just add or subtract to the definitions and whatnot, or descriptions that you have.
Right.
I forget what the word is for it, but it's an open source, kind of a website. But it's a good place to go to get information, and they give you where they get their information from. So you do get authentication of their data in that way. So there's a table. If you go under, let me see, where do I have this this website? Yeah, go to Israeli Declaration of Independence -Wikipedia. Israeli Declaration of Independence -Wikipedia. And on that site, you'll see a bunch of data, but there's a table that gives you the population breakdown of Palestine, because that seemed important to me. If we're talking about some place called Israel, then there must be some regional landmass that is being called Israel, right? And there should be some description of why people are saying that this is their land versus somebody else's land.
Right.
So in 1931, according to this table, there were 175,000 Jewish people living in Palestine.
Mm-hmm.
There were 89,000 Christian people living in Palestine.
Wow.
But there were 760,000 Muslim, what we would say the Palestinians would be the Muslims, Muslim people living in Palestine.
Mm-hmm.
So 32% of the population of Palestine, let me go a little bit further. In 1947, that population of Jewish people grew from 175,000 people in 1931 to 630,000 people in 1947.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to talk about that in a second. For the Christians, its population grew from 89,000 to 143,000.
Wow.
And for the Muslims, its population grew from 760,000 to 1.2 million people in Palestine in 1947. So roughly at the time of the Balfour Resolution, 32% of the population in Palestine was Jewish, 60% of the population of Palestine was Palestinian or Muslim, and 8% of the population of Palestine was Christian.
Now, Christian could have been anything. Right?
Methodist, Calvinist, Protestant,
white, black, could have been anything.
Any kind of, black, Chinese, Christian,
Gotcha.
But anybody that call themselves Christians,
Right.
Eastern Orthodox, what they call the Eastern Orthodox Church, the Byzantine Church, the Ethiopian Coptic Church. There's lots of different versions of flavors of Christianity.
Right.
But the point is that in the day that they declared that more than half of Palestine is now being given to a body of people who are declaring themselves to be a new nation called Israel, half of that land was given to this body of people, and the people that were actually living on the land, they were deported from the land. 750,000 Palestinian Muslims were kicked out of the land of Israel once the Balfour Resolution was adopted. More Palestinians were kicked out of what became Israel than there were Israelis living in Israel at that time.
Wow.
How does that work? How does the population of 630,000 people get to kick out almost half of the population of the 1.2 million people?
Wow.
And didn't give them some place to go. They didn't give them a house, a swimming pool, a car, a movie, whatever. What did Jeb Clampett get when he discovered oil? They didn't get any of that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they got nothing. They were just told you have a day to get out, or we will shoot you.
Wow.
And force these people into a forced migration. It reminds me of Chief Joseph, in the United States. I guess it was the Apache tribe or whatever that was forced to march 1,000 miles to get to a reservation that was established for the Native Americans by the American government, because the land that the Chief Joseph's people were living on, they found iron and I guess some gold and uranium and stuff like that on that land. They said it's too valuable for you all to have it, even though we conquered you and put you on this land. Now we're reconquering you and sending you someplace 1,000 miles away, and you have to walk. That happened.
Wow.
That's what happened to the Palestinians.
So what sounded like a peaceful solution to the Palestinians was very violent.
Exactly. It was peaceful for the Jewish people, because remember, there were no Israeli people, because the Israeli is a citizen of Israel.
Right.
Since in 1947 there is no such thing as Israel, then there's no Israeli people. The United Nations, working on behalf of Jewish people who obviously had some influence in countries all around the world, and particularly in England and in Germany and in France and Spain and Poland and Italy and so on, they had influence. And the Jewish people had been wanting to create a homeland for themselves since forever.
Right.
But remember, Israel stopped calling itself Israel by the time we got to 1721 BC, when the Assyrians conquered the northern kingdom of Israel. By the time that occurred, the northern kingdom didn't call itself Israel. It called itself Samaria. And its capital city wasn't Jerusalem. Its capital city was a city called Samaria. And the population were called Samaritans. That's another story. We'll get into that.
Wow.
We'll get into the biblical stuff. And
this is getting heavy.
Yeah. So I don't want to go too far on that. But there's a whole thing we need to talk about on that issue. Wow. But the point here is that after 721, all that was left of what was called Israel was the land that was occupied by the tribe of Judah. And that area was called Judah. But in 586 BC, they were conquered by the Persians. And then it took a while for them to recover. But when they recovered, they didn't get recovered and constituted into the state of Israel. They became a province of eventually of Greece and then of Rome, and so on. But there was no place on earth after 721 BC that was called Israel.
Okay.
There were people that were called Israelites
that lived on a certain area.
Right, and because they were the descendants of Jacob.
Okay.
Right, the text says that Jacob was renamed Israel by the one God. And so his children are Israelites, essentially the clan of Israel, right?
Judah, right.
And so all of those people that descended from those 12 tribes are the Israelites.
Right.
But there was no place after 721 BC, there was no place on earth called Israel. So the Jewish people were given more than half of the land of Palestine that was being lived in by Palestinian people. Mm-hmm. How did those Palestinian people feel about somebody in Brussels or wherever these, United Nations people meet, for them to decide, well, we're going to take half of your land and give it to these Israelite people, and we're going to take the other half of that land and give it to you. And we're going to give the Israelite people $3 to $10 billion a year to build up their nation, and we got at least $36 for you. Maybe only 24 if you take too long to get to 36. So the Palestinian people rebelled. They said, no, we don't go for that deal.
Yeah.
They were never even included in any of the decision-making, right? So I try to give a little bit of context to this. There's a Declaration of Independence was written and adopted by the Jewish people for land that was given to them by the United Nations that the United Nations didn't own.
But that was the same. But that also, let's put that in perspective. That was the same land that God had promised them, wasn't it?
Right. But where's the record of that? Who knew that? Who accepted that? That's what the Jewish people said went down. Mm-hmm. That's what the Christian people said went down. Mm-hmm. But that's not what the Muslim people said went down. And then, are there only Christians and Muslims and Jewish people in the world? Are there any other people in the world?
Yeah, there are other people.
In fact, aren't there many more other people in the world who are not Christian, Muslims, or Jews than there are in the world who are?
You're probably right, sir.
Easily, there's 1.5 million Chinese. There's 1.5 million people that live in India. And we still haven't counted Pakistan and the Soviet Union and Australia and South America. And so there's a whole lot of people in the world, more people in the world that are not, Christians, Jews, or Muslims than people who are. Mm-hmm. And if the Muslims don't buy, that your book binds us, because that's basically what you're saying, that the Muslims are bound by what's in the Bible. But the Muslims aren't believers in the Bible. They're believers in the Quran. Now, I don't know if the Quran says, I don't recall the Quran saying that this land had been given to Israel into perpetuity and to be called Israel. I don't recall that being in the Quran. So where does the authority come from? If somebody came out of your religion, if you're a Baptist, and if I'm a Calvinist, and I come in and I say, I got a book that says that house you living in. Yeah, I know you've been liking that house for a long time, but that's
mine.
That was promised to me.
Right.
You say, where you get that from?
My God said it was mine.
Right, and I hand you a book, and in the book it says over here on page 36, that's Nate's house, right? Are you going for that?
No, we might have a little discussion.
Now, I'm not saying that to disrespect anybody's religion.
Right.
I'm a Christian. I believe on the text. Mm-hmm. So, from my point of view, that did occur. I'm down with that.
Right.
But just because I'm down with it because I believe it in my religious tradition doesn't mean that somebody in China has to believe it.
Right.
It doesn't mean that somebody who's in the United Arab Republic has to believe it, or the Arabian Peninsula has to believe it,
right,
or Mesopotamia has to believe it.
Right.
You get to believe whatever you believe in your religious tradition. But I can't take my religious tradition, whatever my, for all intents and purposes, my folklore is, and tell you that you have to be bound by those things that I say that I'm bound by according to my religion. We have to have secular agreements. I'm not going to steal your land. You're not going to steal my land.
Right.
I'm not going to pick your pocket. You're not going to pick my pocket.
Right.
I'm not going to shoot you in the face. You're not going to shoot me in the face.
Right.
We have to have secular agreements about things like that.
Right.
The rest of it, you get to believe like you believe.
Right.
Okay? Now, if you have a belief system that allows you to murder other people, then we have to find a way to get rid of you and your belief system.
Right. We got a problem. Right.
Okay?
Right.
That's when they say Houston, we have a problem.
Right.
That's a Houston, we have a problem issue.
Yeah.
Right? So that's why this context is important, because it always comes down to people are picking on Israel. How are you picking on Israel? Well, they got nuclear weapons, they got missiles, they got hundreds of tanks, they got, all kinds of drones, thousands of drones. Mm-hmm. They got, millions of ammo and so on. I don't think one Israeli soldier has been hurt, since October 7th, not counting the people that were hurt on October 7th by the Palestinian Hamas. But the people since that point, how many soldiers have been killed? Maybe one, because they're not fighting hand to hand. They're not fighting, guerrilla, war in an urban terrain. They're dropping bombs from the sky from 10, 15, miles away. They're dropping bombs from the sky and flattening entire blocks of residential buildings, of commercial buildings, and so on. If you look at the map, you'll see that the Gaza Strip is surrounded by Israel. Israel controls any ability to get supplies and both commercial and domestic supplies, for their businesses or for their domestic purposes to go in and out of Israel. Israel controls that. The Gazan people don't control that. Mm-hmm. They control food. You can't bring food in. They've been starving these people from food for 48 days, right? And so on. No water, no power. Hospitals have had, they're not even telling you about how many people have died from starvation already. They're telling you about people that are near these hospitals that Hamas is hospital administration people have counted that have died. But that can't be the truth. These people have been without water and food and power for over a month, over almost 2 months now, right? I mean, this took place October 7th. It's now November 24th. So we're basically six to 7 weeks into this conflict, right? And so, from my perspective, there must be an awful lot of people, maybe tens of thousands of Gazans, that have died from lack of food, that have died from lack of water, that have died from diseases because people have not been able to process waste in their area because their municipal services have been blown up, and so on. And this was done deliberately. So we keep hearing these stories about the Israelite people, and these hostages, and it's a terrible thing, that has happened to them. And how do their families feel and so on. We keep hearing that over and over and over again. But what about the, 14 to 15,000 dead Palestinians that are on the record? What about the 15 or 20 or 30,000 Palestinians that have died from disease, from lack of water, from exposure, from living outside, and so on? What about those people? Where's the stories about that? Where's the empathy for that?
Right.
And so on. Those Palestinian people did not attack Israel. The Hamas organization attacked Israel. And so the right thing to do would have been to come in, and go do door-to-door searches. I mean, Gaza had 2 million people in it, but it's not that big a place. You could have done a door-to-door search of the various terrain and urban area of the Gaza Strip. You could have done that. You would have exposed Israeli soldiers to more possibility that they could get shot, but you would have had many fewer civilian casualties that would have taken place. And you have to ask yourself, which would be better? Having maybe 100 Israeli soldiers die in the course of trying to find these criminals that committed this attack on Israel, would that be worse? Or would having 20 or 30,000 dead Palestinian residents of Gaza, having them dead, and maybe another 10 or 20 or 30,000 more injured, would that be worse? I don't think that you have to do much thinking to figure out which would be worse.
Right.
But that doesn't seem to fly in the psychology of the Israelis, of Benjamin Netanyahu. He keeps saying, we have to keep doing this so we can get Hamas and blow Hamas away. But you're not blowing Hamas away. You're blowing Palestinian citizens away. Right. You're blowing away. I mean, the half of population that they told to move from the north of the Gaza Strip to the south, those people had jobs. They had businesses. They had salons. They had movie theaters. They had grocery stores. They had homes that they were living in and so on.
Right.
All of that they're being forced to move out of, and then it's all being bombed on purpose by the Israelis. And then how do these people re-erect themselves whenever this is over?
Right.
The businesses that they were operating out of no longer exist. The buildings no longer exist. Who pays for the reconstruction of all the stuff that has been destroyed by the Israelites? And I tell you what the Israelites are saying. The Israelites are saying that, well, the other Arab countries, that surround Palestine, and Jordan and Lebanon and the Saudi Arabia, they should pay for it, because, these were Muslim people, these Hamas people, these Hamas Palestinians, they did this. So the Muslim nations as a whole, they should pay for the reconstruction of Gaza. That's what essentially Benjamin Netanyahu is saying. Not a single person I have heard on the news. I mean, I'm listening to CBS, NBC, ABC, MSNBC, C-SPAN. I'm listening to all of these folks, CNN. Not a single person has spoken about who is accountable for paying for reconstructing the Gaza that has been destroyed by Israel. And Israel has not said a word about owning any responsibility to rebuild what they have destroyed.
Right.
Their attitude is, I don't have to rebuild it. I was supposed to destroy it. It's you Muslim people, you animals. I mean, that's what Netanyahu said that, right? You animals, you should be the ones to rebuild. I'm not rebuilding anything. I came to destroy. I didn't come to build. So I just wanted to put that text out there so that we have a framework that we're all operating from, and we're all saying the same things. The possibility of a Jewish homeland in Palestine had been a goal of the Zionist organization since the 19th century. It looks like if you go back to the table I was telling you about in Wikipedia, you go back to 1890 and you start looking at the growth of the Jewish population, you'll see that this is not natural growth. Populations don't double in 17 years, and so on. So this is the result of a deliberate campaign by the Jewish people, what they refer to as the Zionist portion of the Jewish people, a campaign by them to take Palestine and recreate the original state of Israel, to recreate that in Palestine. They've been working on this since at least the 1890s, maybe a little bit earlier than that. According to this document, it's quoting the Balfour Resolution. It says His Majesty's government's view or views with favor the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people, and will use their best endeavors to facilitate the achievement of this goal. It being clearly understood, this is in the Balfour Resolution, it being clearly understood that nothing shall be done which may prejudice the civil and religious rights of existing non-Jewish communities in Palestine, or the rights and political status enjoyed by Jews in any other country. Through this letter, which became known as the Balfour Declaration, British government policy officially endorsed Zionism. After World War I, the United Kingdom was given a mandate for Palestine, which it had conquered from the Ottomans during World War I. In 1937, the Peel Commission suggested partitioning the mandate, what they called Mandate Palestine, in other words, Palestine under the administrative control of England. The UN partition plan, in the face of increasing violence after World War II, the British handed the issue over to the recently established United Nations. And in their resolution, a plan to partition Palestine into independent Arab and Jewish states and a special international regime for the city of Jerusalem were formed. The Jewish state was to receive 56% of the land of Mandate Palestine, which would encompass 82% of the Jewish population. It said the plan was accepted by most of the Jewish population, but rejected by almost all of the Arab population. The plan of partition was put to a vote in the United Nations General Assembly and was adopted by the General Assembly. Now, who said that the United Nations had the authority to give away half of Palestine to anybody?
Right.
The United Nations didn't own Palestine, right?
Right.
Palestine was a country that was being a territory that had been conquered by the Turks and the Ottoman Empire. Mm-hmm. When the Allied powers defeated the Axis powers in World War I, then they were able to drive the Ottomans out. Now that territory should have gone back to being Palestinian territory, owned by them. Mm-hmm. They were the ones that were the occupants of that territory all that time. It should be their land.
Right.
But they gave this land away to somebody else who didn't even live there.
Right.
So it's that context that we have to understand. No matter how you talk to the Palestinian people, you can't undo the fact that they were robbed of half their land.
Right.
And they were thrown out.
And Hamas was birthed because of that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hamas is a result of that. The Palestinian Authority is a result of that.
Right.
The PLA or the PLO, whatever they call it, they're the result of that.
Right.
And for all intents and purposes, ISIS and Al Qaeda are offshoots of.
Oh,
I
didn't know ISIS was part of it.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're not a part of the Palestinian question itself.
Wow.
But they're sort of the Muslim people that feel this affinity to what happened to these Palestinian people.
Oh, that's why ISIS attacked America, because they blame America
for Israel existing in the first place.
Okay.
Right? So I know the music is playing. There's a song that talks about when the music plays, but we won't go to the song right now. What we'll do is we'll take a quick break and listen to our sponsors. So please don't go away. We will see you on the other side of the break here at Living for the People at 91.3 FM WBNY.
One day, I'll teach chemistry to kids.
I'm going to be an architect.
My dream is to be a chef.
This is a world of possibilities. A world in which people who put their minds to something can really make a difference.
My goal is to help the environment.
Someday I'll find a cure for cancer.
At the U.S. Department of Education's Office of Federal Student Aid, we believe that aspiring minds can achieve anything. So we dedicate ourselves to making sure everyone has an opportunity to go to college. Each year, we provide more than $150 billion in grants, loans, and work-study funds, making higher education possible for anyone at any stage of life.
I can go back to college.
I can change careers.
I can make a difference.
Federal Student Aid, proud sponsor of the American Mind. Learn more about money for college at studentaid.gov.
91.3 FM WBNY is proud to present Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman.
Welcome to Democracy Now!
Award-winning investigative journalism.
Is the NRA imploding?
Providing relevant analysis that makes you think.
Secret State Department documents, including evidence of U.S. war crimes.
Fact-finding reports you will not hear elsewhere. Democracy Now! Airs Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. on 91.3 FM WBNY Buffalo. Ready for radio that's challenging, innovative, and encouraging? Tune in, Living for the People.
This is L. Nathan Hare. Join me right here, 91.3 FM WBNY. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 9 a.m. after Amy Goodman's Democracy Now! We'll provide objective analysis regarding current issues. Call 878-5104. It's Living for the People on 91.3 FM WBNY. All right, welcome back to Living for the People. This is L. Nathan here, your host here for the rest of this hour. Here at 91.3 FM WBNY. We're here with Willie H., who does the live streaming of the program. Welcome back, Willie.
Welcome, everybody, to Living for the People with L. Nathan here. Call in, y'all, 716-878-5104.
So I wanted to take a quick look at, again, some of the things that are causing this corrosive impact on the integrity of the American democracy. You know, democracy is built on pillars. The first pillar, of course, is that you believe that one person, one vote. You got to believe that. That's not written in the Bible, that's something you just have to come to an agreement about. We're going to start right there. We're going to start with an agreement that we're going to treat everybody equally in the country. Right. You know, if you're tall, if you're short, if you're fat, if you're slim, if you're black or you're white or you're red or you're brown or you're yellow or whatever, you know, whatever your flavor is, right. You still get treated the same way as something called an American citizen. Right. So we vest equality into your citizenship. Mm-hmm. That's what gives you the assurance that you are going to be treated like any other American, because your treatment is based on your being an American citizen, and we embody rights into being an American citizen. So with that framework, those are pillars, right? So then we develop a structure that allows us to be able to administer ourselves. That's another pillar of our democracy. Mm-hmm. Now, once we develop this structure for how we're going to administer ourselves, people have to operate the pieces of that structure. They don't operate themselves. So we have to hire people to do that work. When you hire people, you have to do something called paying people. You would agree with that, right?
I agree.
Okay. And so to pay the people, you need something called money, because people don't want to be paid with goats and sheep like they used to do in the old days. They want to be paid with money. Mm-hmm. And so where does the money come from? It comes from taxing the people. You're taxing the people to put up money collectively so that we can collectively do those things for ourselves as a society that cannot be done easily if they had to be done individually. We collectively ensure that our water is safe. We collectively ensure that our food is safe. We collectively build roads to take us from one place to another, to build railroad lines to take us from one place to another, to defend our borders from assaults from other nations, to defend our land from toxins and air pollution and so on. That's what we use taxes for, and we make agreements amongst ourselves. You know, we say this year, you know, we need to put some money up for mental health services for people that are suffering, you know, brain illnesses, just like we put up money for people that are suffering physical illnesses. Mm-hmm. We need to put some money up for that. So to do that, we're either going to reduce our expenses in some area and shift that money over to mental health, or we're going to increase the amount of taxes that we collect from people so that we can pay for the mental health services. If we didn't do this collectively, you'd have to do it all individually. We see that dog doesn't hunt. If you leave it up to everybody on their own to figure out that they're losing it, you know, in their mind, that they're having some mental health disease or issue, if you leave it up to people individually to do that, you're going to have chaos in the country. You have to have a systemic way to be able to treat that problem. So that's the paradigm that our system is based on. One of the pieces of the paradigm, I would hope, I'm writing this down in the hope column, one of the pieces of the paradigm of how we govern ourselves as a people is if you have been observed as being a person who would engage in insurrection against the United States, you can't be the president of the United States. Mm. Let's see, how hard is that to figure out? If you were Jefferson Davis, who was the president of the United Confederacy of the United States, the Confederate, rebelling states in the Civil War, if you were Jefferson Davis, who had been a member of Congress, of the United Congress, he decided that he was the man of La Mancha. He was going to spring the South and make it a slaving nation free from the North. That guy, when the North won the war, would you hire Jefferson Davis to now be the president of the entire United States? Mm. The man who was the head of the Confederacy?
Right, no.
You wouldn't hire, I'm hoping that you wouldn't do that, right?
Right, I wouldn't want to, no.
You wouldn't want to, all those people that were on the Senate in the Confederate, United Confederacy, would you hire any of them to be your senators in the renewed United States?
I would. I'm sure other people would, but I wouldn't.
See, so that's what the amendment to the 14th Amendment spoke to. The amendment to the 14th Amendment basically said that any person or no person who took an oath to support the Constitution then engaged in insurrection can hold office in the United States, period. There's no qualifiers on that. If you had been a person who had pledged yourself to support the Constitution of the United States, to respect the laws of the United States, to act to enforce the laws of the United States, to preserve the Republic, if you were the person that took that oath and then you engaged in insurrection, why could you be allowed to come back and apply for another public office and take the same oath that you just got done, betraying? That's the reason why you can't do it, because you already took an oath that said that you wouldn't do that. Then you did the thing that you said you wouldn't do. So you can't hire that person back. You don't have to be smart to figure that out.
Right.
I mean, that should just be common sense. So, but in September of this year, 6 Colorado voters filed a lawsuit in the Denver District Court seeking to block Trump from the 2024 presidential ballot, arguing that, as I indicated, the 14th Amendment disqualifies Trump due to his actions around the January 6, 21 insurrection. During a week-long bench trial, testimony in the Colorado case, Sandra Wallace, who was the judge in this case in the Denver court, she ruled, A, that the January 6th January 6th incident was indeed an insurrection. B, that Trump incited the insurrection. C, inciting an insurrection counts as having engaged in insurrection. And D, the final report of the House of Representatives panel that investigated the January 6th incident was trustworthy. And E, she determined that Trump long embraced political violence and intended the January 6th mob to engage in violence, and that he knew his claim that the 2020 election was stolen from him was false, that he was lying when he was saying that. So Trump should be qualified under that circumstance, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
We're hoping that you'd agree, but Judge Wallace said no, that doesn't disqualify him.
Wow.
So now we need to try to understand why. Common sense would say that anyone should be barred from public office. That if anyone should be barred from public office, it's an insurrectionist former president, and any office should be off limits to an insurrectionist, especially if it's the presidency. So first, Wallace concluded that the framers of Section 3 did not intend to bar insurrectionists from the presidency. They intended to bar insurrectionists from all the other public offices in the country, but not the presidency. That's what she ruled. How does that make an ounce of sense? The provision says, under the United States, if they engage, it says no person shall be a senator or representative of in Congress or elector of the president and vice president or hold any office under the United States. That's any office that's paid for by the federal government, right? Please work with me. That's any office that's paid for by the federal government. So if they engage in insurrection, having previously taken an oath as a member of Congress or as an officer of the United States or other public offices to support the Constitution. So the fact that they don't say the word presidency They say any other public office, senator, congressperson, any other public office. That includes the presidency. It includes the Secretary of State. This provision doesn't name, the secretaries of the 12 departments of government, but they're covered, right? So obviously the presidency is covered. But Wallace concluded that nope, they didn't say the word president in that amendment, so it doesn't count. She said the president is not an officer of the United States. How can the president of the United States not be an officer of the United States? What is the presidency an officer of?
It's the biggest office of the United States.
They're office of the heaven. I know that, like Mike Johnson. They got a heavenly chorus, and you're a part of the heavenly chorus, right? So any office obviously meant as a catch-all that included the presidency. So he takes the view that even while asserting that the text could reasonably be read in different ways, recounting how amendment drafters were at pains to ensure someone like arch-traitor Jefferson Davis would be barred from public office, he explains that the mechanics of Section 3 would have prevented a Jefferson Davis presidency through the Electoral College. So essentially, this Amendment 3, this amendment of the 14th Amendment, which is Section 3 of the amendment, it clearly as you possibly can state it, that a person who has been engaged, who has already taken an oath of loyalty to the United States, to its Constitution, that a person who has already taken that oath, if they become an insurrectionist, they cannot then afterwards say, my bad, I didn't mean to hang out with them. I know Trump's a punk now. Can I come back and be a senator again? No, you can't even be a dog catcher. You can't do anything on the public dime. You're finished.
Wow.
You're lucky that they don't take your citizenship away.
Wow.
Right? So judges around the country blinked at the awful implications of Section 3's application to Trump. The provision clearly bars Trump from ever holding office again, but the real-world dangers that could result from its enforcement surely weigh on the minds of judges. Here's what Sandra Wallace is considering: the possibility that there might be violent eruptions by the Trump supporters around the United States. They'd break into council offices and congressional offices and post offices and set fires and do terrible things.
Threaten people. Yeah.
Threaten people and so on. If that's the case, we should be prepared to fight those people. We should not be prepared to give in to those people, right? And that's what Sandra Wallace is doing. She's saying that her concern for what the repercussions would be if Trump were denied the ability to appear on the ballot, that would create so much chaos in the country it wouldn't be worth it. So we'd rather just let him, go through the electoral process and hope that the voters don't vote for him. We shouldn't allow a voter to even consider Donald Trump's name on anything at all. He's already caused trillions of dollars worth of destruction of the infrastructure of the United States democracy. So I went to another article written by Amanda Marcotti. She was writing with regard to how these what do they call these things? These disinformation campaigns, these myths, that they keep coming up with, to justify their positions for why they don't like Joe Biden, and why the government should be handed over to these insurrectionists and so on. This article appeared in Salon magazine, entitled "Marjorie Taylor Greene and Mike Lee Get January 6th Footage, but trying to blame the FBI could backfire." So what they're talking about is that there's something like 44,000 hours of footage of filming that took place around the January 6th, 2021 insurrection. Now, it's not that it took 44,000 hours in a row for the event to take place. It's that if you took all of the different videos that were taken and you played each one of them in order, it would take 44,000 hours to go through all of them. But what people don't understand is when we put stuff on video and you start sharing that with the public gets to look at that video on their own. And they may see things you didn't know that they would see, that you didn't see when you were looking at the video.
Right.
And it may be that the public finds out there are things on the video that show that you're the skunk.
Ooh.
Yeah, let's roll with that. So it's no surprise that a guy who took the lead defending Donald Trump's attempted coup was the newly appointed Speaker of the House, Representative Mike Johnson, Republican of Louisiana. And he moved quickly to abuse his power in an effort to spread lies and disinformation under the guise of transparency by releasing over 40,000 hours of security footage from the January 6th insurrection online. And I believe that starts today, that he's going to be letting maybe every few days a few more hours of this footage out to the public. So the Republican Party wants to rewrite history in gaslight, claiming that our lying eyes deceive us and that the Capitol riot was really, it was more like tourists who just got a little out of hand. You know, when you only expected 14 tourists, in this hour, and there turned out to be 600, in that hour,
right.
And they were all bumping into each other. It was just tourists, that were just,
right.
Too many people.
They just got beside themselves. That's all.
Exactly. So the propagandists obviously will cherry pick a few moments in the video where it looks like the rioters were not beating up the cops and pretend that somehow negates the rest of what you see on the video. It goes on, sure enough, some of the most annoying people in Congress tweeted conspiracy theories about the footage already. For example, Senator Mike Lee of Utah, Republican of Utah, he retweeted an image of a Capitol rioter with captions falsely implying that the man was an undercover FBI agent. He actually then went to a House Oversight Committee and demanded that Christopher Wray, who is he's the National Director of Intelligence, forced him to come and testify before his committee about this supposed FBI officer being seen in this footage in the Capitol riot. So what it turns out is this person was already someone who had been convicted of participating in the insurrection, was already in jail. When Mike Lee published his lies about this, that man was already in jail.
Wow.
And the thing that Mike Lee was claiming was evidence that this guy was an FBI agent. The guy was holding a vape, what do you call it, a vape tube? Is that what they do when they smoke vape tobacco?
They have a tube now, yeah.
Yeah, so he was holding a vape tube. Mike Lee tried to contend that this guy was holding a gun. So, and then of course, Christopher Wray is the FBI director, not the NSI director. And Marjorie Taylor Greene, she repeated the same obviously silly story because the woman, well, this is according to the article, I won't go through that. In the end, they may have wished that they'd pushed it down the memory hole instead of constantly reminding people of what happened on that day. NBC News reporter Ryan Riley immediately debunked this lie about this man being an FBI agent. In a shocking twist, he managed to embarrass Marjorie Taylor Greene just enough that she deleted the screenshot from her website. She still shamelessly continues to push the flat-out falsehood that January 6th was anything but the Trump-inspired effort to overthrow an election that it was. But Mike Lee was also able to exhibit more brazen dishonesty than Greene, if that's possible. By doubling down and bickering with Liz Cheney, Republican in Wyoming, when she correctly noted that this was just nutball conspiracy theory. The person who originally tweeted the image, after all, is another convicted rioter, Derek Evans. You can say with certainty that the convicted rioters know that they are not, in fact, secret FBI agents. Nor did Lee apologize when confronted with irrefutable evidence that the man in the photo is actually Kevin Lyons, who has admitted his guilt and is sitting in prison right now for his crime. This is the man that Mike Lee was saying was an FBI agent that was manipulating the crowd, and caused it was the FBI, that caused all of the chaos in the Capitol. Wow. It is just crazy, and then he's not held to account for lying, right? In the end game, their end game, Marjorie Taylor Greene and these MAGA people, their end game is to overwhelm their opposition with so many lies and bizarre digressions that people eventually just get exhausted and they stop listening. They stop trying to figure out what's true or what's not true. They just blow it off.
Right.
But when you blow it off, whatever it is that's still in the air, that's what's still in your mind. So all you're hearing is, that was the government, they had a conspiracy, to get this insurrection going so they could make people want to elect people like Joe Biden. But they're the bad guys. We're the good guys. We're trying to give you access to your guns. If you're with us, you can have a gun in church. You can have a gun in school. If you're with us, you can step into that woman's bedroom and say, what are you doing with your body over there? You can't do that with your body. I insist that you do what I say with your body, not what you say you can do with your. This is the world that is being created for us right now, and it's all you hear. And when you stop listening, because you get tired of listening to it,
right,
then you stop making yourself be disciplined in understanding what's true and what's not true.
Right.
Then the untruths wind up being the thing that you keep hearing over and over and over again, and you start acting based on untrue things. The good news is that, at least this is according to the article, they hope that the MAGA tactics are not working. They said it's hard to measure these things, but the online reaction showed that folks seemed aware that arguing with Mike Lee is beneath their dignity, and that Mike Lee is just a born-again liar. So I don't know how we're doing. We just got a minute or so
2 minutes
left. So just want to go back for a second. There is what we hope is a real breakthrough in the Hamas-Israel conflict, in which some 13 or so of the hostages, which will be, my understanding will be only women and children, will be released by Hamas. And if that exchange goes the way that they hope that it would go, nobody explains this to you. They're gonna release 150 hostages or prisoners that are being held by Israel.
Mm-hmm.
All of the 150 prisoners that are going to be released by Israel are women and children.
Wow.
Well, if they're women and children, how did they become prisoners? I mean, aren't prisoners either people that you catch engaged in, war against a country, or they're people you caught committing a crime? Are you saying that these are 150 women and children were folks that were committing crimes, or they were soldiers? See, there's something wrong with this story.
Yeah.
And the problem is we're not listening with a disciplined ear.
Right.
We're letting people say things to us in their context, and then we end up accepting their context as if that's true.
Right. If you have a problem, why is there women and children that you take? I mean, understandable, you hurt or kill women and children, but then you let them go. Why you got them captured?
Why you have them captured?
Yeah, what's going on here?
And if you're calling them prisoners, if they're prisoners, then they did something. They either committed a crime or they were soldiers.
Right.
So you need to give us a script. How did you validate that these children and these women were soldiers?
Right.
And if they're not soldiers and they're not criminals, then why are they in prison?
Right.
Right? It's that sort of stuff. And then people say that, it's unbalanced because Hamas is going to release 13 hostages in return for, 50 hostages in return for 150 Palestinians. They make it seem like that's an unfair swap. But the reality is, there's no reason why Israel should have 150 women and children in prison in the first place.
Right. What's going on?
Why isn't anybody asking that question? Why are we the only ones asking that question?
Right.
So I know you hear the music playing. I just want us to be disciplined in our own processing of the information that's being put in front of us. Everything, my father used to have a saying, all that glitters is not gold.
Right.
Everything that's tall is not old.
Right.
And Mona Lisa may in fact have been a man.
Woo.
He just wanted us to keep our minds open.
When I look at the picture, I gotta.
There's potential issues there, right?
Yeah,
there's room for conversation anyway.
There's room
right?
for conversation. Yes.
So listen, we got to take a quick run. We only got we have the weekend in front of us. We really hope that you had a great Thanksgiving, that you have a holiday weekend that's memorable for you and all of your family. We look forward to talking to you all on Monday here at Living for the People at 91.3 FM WBNY. See you soon, Lauren.